The innocent wife of the tycoon was ecstatic and barefoot to welcome the black maid, but she didn't expect the other party to just respond coldly. It turned out that she was ruthlessly kicked out of her former employer's house on a stormy night because she had to use the toilet in her former employer's house. She couldn't swallow this bad breath, so she pretended to repent and apologize the next day with a chocolate pie mixed with feces. Hillary, the former employer, also allowed her to enter the house as a winner and then continued to mock Minnie while enjoying the delicious food. Hilly even said arrogantly that if she wanted to continue to stay and work, she could, but the salary would be at most half of the previous one. Minnie was furious when she heard this, and for the first time in her life, she spoke rudely to a white person. At first, Hilly, the former employer, thought Minnie was just talking nonsense. It was not until Minnie told the truth that Hilly, the former employer, panicked like a clown and rushed to the toilet to vomit. Minnie's momentary revenge will eventually bring long-term bitter consequences. Not only did Minnie lose her job completely, but Hilly, the former employer, also spread rumors that she was a thief, so that she became a person avoided by the rich circle. Minnie could only let her 14-year-old daughter drop out of school and go home to work as a maid to supplement the family income, but she soon found a way out. When Minnie heard that a wealthy couple who needed a maid had moved to the town more than 10 kilometers away, and the hostess was not on good terms with her former employer, she immediately, "We took the bus to the villa to try our luck." Minnie was surprised that the other party was completely different from other white ladies. Not only did she not discriminate against her skin color, but she also enthusiastically took the initiative to introduce everything about her family. You should know that many white people in Mississippi, the United States at that time, believed that black people were second-class citizens. They must not have physical contact unless necessary, otherwise it would be self-degrading and lowering their status. But Celia didn't care about these at all. She was only worried that the villa was too big and the workload was too much. Minnie might not be willing to accept this job. After all, many people had declined before. However, what Celia didn't know was that Minnie was looking forward to it at this time. When she learned that Minnie was willing to accept this job, Celia excitedly stepped forward and gave her a big hug. After confirming the intention to hire each other, Minnie took the lead in raising the issue of salary and working hours. At that time, black people were cheap labor. The maid had to work 6 days a week, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, but the monthly salary was only $182. Originally, Minnie also wanted to follow the same working hours and salary treatment, but Celia followed the standards of white people, not only reducing her working hours, but also increasing her monthly salary. The sudden good fortune made Minnie overjoyed. In order to share this joy, she happily ran to Ibeline's house that night, but found a strange white girl, communicating with Ibeline face to face. Minnie's alarm bells were ringing in an instant, because in this society full of discrimination, almost no white people are willing to condescend to visit black maids, so she crossed her arms and cautiously questioned the girl's origin and purpose. It turned out that the girl was a newly graduated college student, Skeeter, currently working as a reporter for a local tabloid. Because she loves words and writing and has a kind and righteous heart, she wants to write a biography of black maids to let more people understand their survival difficulties in order to help them get out of the shadow of discrimination. But Minnie would not believe that there would be white people who sincerely speak for black people, so she resolutely dissuaded Ibeline from participating. In fact, Ibeline did not dare to agree at first, because in this backward and closed town, there are a large number of extreme racists. They do not allow anyone to promote the idea of equality between whites and blacks in any form, otherwise the person involved will face criminal detention. Although the maid's story about her own experience is a true promotion of equality, she will definitely be threatened with death if she is discovered. So Ibeline did not agree until she learned that Minnie was fired. Not only could she no longer find a job, but she was also repeatedly abused by her husband. The anger that had accumulated in her heart for decades finally couldn't help but burst out completely. However, Minnie still felt that Ibeline was too risky. So when Minnie learned that Ibeline had made up her mind, she slammed the door in anger and walked out, but she turned back just after walking out for 2 steps. It turned out that in Minnie's inner deep in their hearts, they had long wanted to break out of the cage and speak for black people. In this way, 2 brave black maids disclosed their inner thoughts that night and told their own stories. They became more and more excited and continued to talk until dawn. Although their experiences were very representative, Skeeter said that these contents were not enough to support a biography about maids, so at least 10 more people were needed to participate. But there were only a few brave people after all. Everyone was afraid of retaliation, Not to mention that a maid had just been sent to prison not long ago. That was after Minnie left her former employer's house, and the former employer Hilly hired a new maid. However, on the first day of work, the new maid made an unwelcome request. She said both of my sons were admitted to college, but they still need $75 to make up for the tuition. If Hilly is willing to give her new maid an advance, she will work for an extra month for free in return. In the eyes of ordinary people, this is a deal that can be negotiated. But Hilly's husband left quickly before he finished listening, saying that he was late for work, and Hilly felt like she had heard a joke, because in her perception, black people were not qualified to negotiate with her. Hilly not only did not agree, but also ridiculed the other party. I thought the matter would end here, but I don't know if it was a coincidence or a human factor. When the new maid was cleaning, she accidentally found a fine diamond ring under the sofa. Out of selfishness, she secretly hid it and sold it the next day for cash. But when she took the bus back to her employer's house with the money, she was arrested by the police who had been waiting for a long time. At first, she struggled unwillingly, but the next second she was knocked unconscious in the police car, and Hilly was sitting in a car not far away, enjoying the process with a peaceful face. Soon, the news spread throughout the town, and the black maids became nervous. However, just when everyone was in danger, a more terrifying thing happened quietly. That night, Ibeline took the bus home, but the driver suddenly stopped halfway and asked all the black people on the bus to get off immediately. It turned out that a black person was shot and killed by a racist in her home just now. In order to prevent the white people from being retaliated, the driver had to send them home safely first. Just like this, the more dangerous black people were like garbage. It was thrown on the roadside. Due to fear and anxiety, Ibeline, like other compatriots, ran towards home without stopping for a moment, and accidentally fell heavily on the muddy road. This society is full of discrimination against black people. Just like this quagmire, it will not take your life, but it will leave dirty mud on your body. Then Ibeline quickly came to Minnie's house, because she could only feel at ease with her friends, and Minnie looked at the mud mixed with blood on Ibeline's legs. Minnie finally realized that if the black community did not unite, they would be in hell for the rest of their lives, and even their descendants would find it difficult to escape. Fortunately, those who realize this Minnie is not the only one. There are more maids who want to change their fate. So when Skeeter found Ibeline again, he found that those who were unwilling to be interviewed before all gathered together at this moment, waiting to talk. And in these women's stories, Skeeter not only heard a lot of helplessness, but also saw the darkness and brilliance of human nature. What made her most sad was the scars of the past that Ibeline had to reveal while holding back tears. It turned out that 3 years ago, Ibeline's only son was crushed by a truck on the construction site, causing his lungs to be crushed, and the white foreman just threw him at the door of the dilapidated hospital exclusively for blacks and left directly. When the doctor found it, it was too late to save him. At that time, he was only 24 years old, in the prime of his youth, but he lost his life forever because of the indifference of white people. Skeeter couldn't believe that such a cruel thing actually happened around her, but it was also the realization of the cruelty of reality that strengthened her determination to reveal the truth to the world. Soon after, Skeeter integrated all the stories she collected and handed them to the editor-in-chief, who was also optimistic about this unconventional theme and agreed to help her publish it into a book. However, there was still a serious problem before publication. Although all the interviewees used pseudonyms, the stories all happened in the town. Skeeter would definitely be recognized if he published it, and the interviewees might be in danger of their lives. Just when Skeeter didn't know what to do, Minnie reluctantly told Hilly about the chocolate poop and suggested writing it into the book, because Hilly would definitely try every means to persuade others for the sake of face. These stories did not happen in the small town, but if she really did this, Hilly, who is narrow-minded, would definitely take extreme revenge on Minnie, so even if Minnie insisted again and again, Skeeter did not want to take this risk. But what happened next made her change her mind. On this day, Hilly suddenly called on everyone in public during the daily gathering of white ladies to build a black toilet in their own home. To prevent the maids from breaking the rules like Minnie and secretly using the master's toilet, everyone happily agreed. Skeeter felt helpless. And then these white people who thought they were superior held a hypocritical charity lecture. As the initiator, Hilly stood on the podium with a sanctimonious look, calling on everyone to participate in the upcoming charity party and calling on people to donate clothes for African children. Hilly's words were full of justice, as if he was really a great philanthropist. But Skeeter knew that this was just Hilly's need to show off and save face. Suddenly, Hilly asked Skeeter to publish this good deed in the newspapers. Since it was indeed a good thing in the eyes of outsiders, Skeeter could only pretend to agree, and then procrastinate again and again on the grounds of being busy, until Hilly Ellie saw through her little trick and came to her house to question her angrily, so she had to prepare the charity promotional manuscript. While writing, Skeeter suddenly saw the old photo of her and Hilly. At that time, they were still the best of girlfriends, but later, Hilly got married and had children like most white girls and became a rich wife. And Skeeter went to a foreign country to finish the university she had always wanted to go to. She originally thought that even if they took different paths, their friendship since childhood would not change. However, the completely different ideas and concepts still made them farther and farther apart, and now they are on the verge of breaking up. But Skeeter didn't feel sorry at all, because people with different paths cannot work together, so she locked the photo that was originally in front of her into the dark drawers. Then she changed the donation of clothes written in the manuscript to the donation of old toilets. So when the manuscript was successfully published, Hilly received a yard of old toilets. She became the topic of conversation among the residents of the town, but despite many criticisms, Hilly still held the charity dinner as scheduled. All white people in the town and nearby were invited that night, including Celia and her husband. Since Celia has never been a typical white rich girl, her behavior has always been unruly. Although she can't cook, she dares to hold a knife to slaughter poultry. Perhaps because she is too different, she is often excluded by the wives' circle. Once she took the initiative to bring dessert to a party of wives, but was ruthlessly locked out. At first, she couldn't understand why everyone had such great malice towards her, until Minnie told Celia that her husband had dated Hilly. They all thought that you had interfered, which led to their final breakup. Celia understood immediately and said that she would tell Hilly the truth at the charity dinner to clear up the misunderstanding. So Celia and her husband came to the dinner, which was full of people. Everyone was enjoying themselves. It seemed that they had completely forgotten that their original intention was to help African children who were trapped in poverty and hunger. Finally, after the lively opening ceremony, the charity auction officially began. But what puzzled and angered Hilly was that someone bought the chocolate pie made by Minnie in her name at a high price, which revived Hilly's memory of eating feces. Just when Hilly was forcing a smile and pretending to be calm, Celia, on the other side, finally plucked up the courage to come to Hilly and explain that she was not the third party. Celia's husband had never been unfaithful to her before. If Hilly still felt angry, Celia could ask Minnie to make more chocolate pies for her. Celia thought Hilly liked it very much and took a photo of it. Although it was not intentional, the last sentence undoubtedly made Hilly furious. Hilly even suspected that Celia and Minnie were secretly colluding and deliberately chose to make things difficult for her that night, causing her attitude towards Celia to become worse. And Celia, who had no idea, could only rush out of the door in grievance. Although there were several minor setbacks, the auction ended smoothly. As the organizer, Hilly stood at the door to see off the guests one by one. At this time, Hilly's mother suddenly came to her with a plate of chocolate pies and hummed a little song. It turned out that Hilly's mother was the real buyer of this dessert, and the reason why she embarrassed Hilly was because she was also there on the day of eating feces, and she couldn't help but laugh. Hilly threw her into a nursing home regardless of the mother-daughter relationship. In order to avenge her, she came up with this plan that would not damage the family's reputation and could relieve her hatred. Soon after, the reporter finished the draft of the book. Aibileen and Minnie were moved and relieved after reading it, but when they asked when it would be published, Skeeter said that there was one last story missing, a story about her and the maid. It turned out that when Skeeter was a child, she was too tall and had freckles all over her face. Skeeter was often ridiculed and excluded by her classmates. Her mother was busy with socializing every day and never cared about her thoughts. Only the maid kept comforting her and encouraging her. She gradually became bright and confident. It can be said that compared with her mother's efforts, the maid was more like her relative and mother. However, Skeeter only studied in college for a few years. When Skeeter returned home, she found that the maid had disappeared. She had asked about the maid's whereabouts many times, but her mother just said that she had resigned. At first, Skeeter was not happy about this. The explanation was half believing and half doubting, until after experiencing various events, she firmly believed that it was not the case, so she asked her mother for the truth again. And under her constant questioning, the mother finally told the truth. It turned out that in the second year after Skeeter left home, her mother was appointed as the state critic. This was an extremely honorable position, and many bigwigs came to celebrate for her in person. However, at the crucial luncheon, The maid was disliked and dissatisfied by everyone because of her old age and slow movements. Although the mother felt very embarrassed, she resisted and did not get angry until the doorbell rang for a long time, but the maid did not hear it because of deafness. The mother could only get up and go to open the door. Unexpectedly, it was the maid's daughter who came to visit at the door. At a gathering of powerful white people, the mother felt that black people could not enter, so she let the other party go through the back door and waited obediently in the kitchen. As a result, the other party could not tolerate this discrimination and broke in directly from the front door. Originally, the mother wanted to keep things quiet, but one of the guests suddenly showed dissatisfaction and strongly demanded that the mother and son be expelled. On one side was a black man who had dedicated 29 years to her family, and on the other side was a white man who could help her get promoted. Faced with the dilemma of having to choose one of the two, her mother finally chose the latter. Skeeter was very angry after hearing this. She felt that this was a betrayal of her relatives, so she immediately got up and prepared to find the maid. But her mother said that she had looked for them the day after she drove them away, but they had already left for another city. When her mother found out where they lived and was ready to take them back, the maid had already died. When people were young, they always thought that death would come at a certain age, but now they find that it is random and a true separation of life and death. Often there is no sadness and beauty of the long pavilion and ancient road, nor the heroic persuasion of drinking another glass of wine. She may just be in a mourning like usual. Arrived silently, and some people stayed in yesterday forever. Skeeter drove to the maid's former residence in disbelief, but it was already in a state of decay. In an instant, childhood memories came to her mind. Skeeter seemed to see the relative who healed her, who was sitting on the steps to comb her hair. After a while, a book called Help appeared in major supermarkets and bookstores. At the same time, Minnie also received a huge sum of $46 sent with the letter. It turned out that Skeeter divided all the royalties equally among the narrators of each story to express his gratitude and respect for them. Although the book is all about black people, it quickly spread among white people because the story is novel and touching. On this day, Hilly's mother was reading the book with relish in the nursing home. As a result, she was surprised to find that it also recorded her daughter eating feces, so she told her daughter with bad intentions that she must go and see Help, which is popular in Mississippi. And that night, Hilly's room was shocked by the explosion, and then she did, as Minnie predicted. When others suspected that the book was about the stories around them, only Hilly tried her best to argue that it was absolutely impossible. She originally tried to use this method to maintain her image, but the suppressed emotions soon became unbearable. Because the African Charity Foundation also saw the book, and wrote back to imply that she was a hypocritical philanthropist. For a moment, Hilly was furious, and then drove to Skeeter's house like a desperado. Although the author of The Help also used a pseudonym, Hilly knew it must be Skeeter, because only she had the motivation and ability to complete it. At this time, Skeeter was tossing and turning because of two things. The first was that her boyfriend, who had been dating for a short time, angrily proposed to break up after learning that she was the author of The Help originally. Skeeter thought her boyfriend was very different, because when the two first met, the other party clearly stated that he liked her eccentricity, her outspokenness, and Skeeter likes her intelligence and her seriousness in work. It is for this reason that Skeeter agreed to date him, but now he thinks these are all shortcomings and criticizes Skeeter for nothing. In fact, after calming down, Skeeter realized that her boyfriend is nothing more than a supporter of the current system. In his mind, white people are nobler than black people, which cannot be questioned or shaken. Another thing that makes Skeeter feel entangled is that she received an offer letter from a major New York newspaper, but whether it is her mother's always opposing attitude or the current turmoil in the town caused by her, she can't leave with peace of mind. Just when she was distressed, Hilly drove over in a hurry. But when the two confronted each other, Hilly was defeated again immediately, because she was the one who was wrong. Hilly wanted to complain to Skeeter's mother, but the mother was uncharacteristically not only firmly on her daughter's side, but also drove Hilly out with sharp words. It turned out that the mother finally understood her daughter's thoughts and talents from the book Help. She used to think that girls should find a man to marry and raise children rather than pursuing the so-called economic and spiritual independence, so she always forced Skeeter to go on a blind date. But now she feels that everyone has a different path in life. Whether men or women, white or black, they should follow their hearts and boldly live a path of their own. Despite the strong support of her mother, Skeeter still didn't dare to decisively accept the olive branch thrown by New York. Until this day, Minnie and Abilene came with the help of hundreds of black people to support her brave pursuit of her dream. When she learned that Skeeter was still worried that they would be targeted, Aibileen said that if this happened, even if Skeeter stayed, he couldn't do anything, and she and Minnie would definitely take care of each other. So Skeeter left the town. Minnie went to work as usual. But this time, she met Celia's husband, who was driving home on the road. At first, Minnie wanted to pretend to be calm and walk forward without looking back, but when the other party stopped the car and called Minnie, she immediately ran away in fear. It turned out that from the first day of the employment relationship, Celia asked Minnie to keep it a secret from her husband, because Celia didn't want her husband to know that she was a useless person who couldn't do housework and hired a black maid without his knowledge. At first, Minnie was very worried because she was afraid that if she was discovered one day, she might be shot. But at that time, she needed a job too much, and Celia's salary was very generous, so she ignored this potential risk. But now that the truth has really come out, she is really scared. However, when she picked up the branches on the ground and prepared to fight to the death, the other party said in a gentle tone that he knew Minnie's first night. Otherwise, the table couldn't be so clean if it was just Celia's words. The reason why Celia's husband didn't expose her was because Celia's condition had obviously improved a lot since Minnie came. It turned out that Celia, who was always enthusiastic to the outside, actually suffered from severe depression because she had miscarried 3 times, but she didn't dare to tell her husband every time. Instead, she secretly put the unborn baby into a box and buried it in the back garden. Although her husband always loved her and supported her behind the scenes, she still didn't have the courage to tell the truth until Minnie showed kindness again and again and enlightened her heart again and again. Celia finally dared to completely confess herself to her husband yesterday, and in order to express to Minnie, thanks to Celia for staying up all night and making a whole table of delicious food. After explaining everything, Celia's white husband considerately moved a stool for Minnie, a black person. When Minnie sat down happily, Celia personally served her food. 2 white people served a black person together. There is no doubt that this is a milestone in the relationship between people and the beginning of Minnie's happiness as a person. However, Aibileen on the other side was not so lucky. Because her employer was afraid of Hilly, when Hilly proposed to fire her because of personal hatred, her employer had no choice but to agree. But before leaving, Aibileen, who always believed in not talking back to people, finally. She bravely defended herself. Warned Hilly that she could lose her job with just 1 sentence, or put her in jail for any reason, but Hilly could not control her thoughts or her expressions. Aibileen was often praised for her good writing skills, so she didn't mind writing down all of Hilly's scandals. Hilly was a self-righteous, vicious woman, and one day Hilly would pay the price for her actions. After leaving, Aibileen never worked as a maid again. She raised 17 children in her first half of her life, only one of whom was black, and the others were all white descendants. But she treated all these children equally, not only taking care of their daily lives in every detail, but also Aibileen also encouraged them again and again that they were the kindest, the smartest, and the most important. She kept repeating these because most of the children did not get the love and praise they deserved from their biological parents, but she didn't want to confine herself to a small space in the rest of her life, because after she expressed her inner feelings, she finally experienced the pleasure of freedom. In the future, she wanted to observe more people, experience more things, and feel more emotions. Thus, she used words to describe the most real world in her eyes. Getting Along was directed by Tate Taylor, Emma Stone, and Viola Davis, starred. A drama film released in 2011. After witnessing the unfair treatment of black maids again and again, a rich white female reporter began to secretly interview black maids at the risk of violating the law, and wrote a book to publish. In this process, the black maids felt the freedom of life through confession and realized equal rights. Everyone has a responsibility, and some white people have begun to consciously reflect after reading the bloody stories. It must be said that in the 1960s, when racism was the most serious in the southern United States, Skeeter dared to speak for black people, and dared to draw a clear line with people of the same skin color, with different outlooks on life. It is a vivid display of the brilliance of human nature. In addition to her unremitting efforts, the reason why she was able to successfully publish the book was inseparable from the help of various groups. If it were not for the courage of the black servants, she would not have been able to obtain the touching story. If the female editor-in-chief did not pass her proposal and plan under social pressure, her book would have been aborted from the beginning. If New York at that time was as extremely racist as the town where she lived, she would not have been able to get a better job, let alone have the opportunity to realize her own life value. Well, today's movie sharing is here. Welcome to like, comment, and forward. Thank you for your patience. Looking forward to meeting you next time.